Welcome to another episode of We Don't Die, where my goal is to give you evidence that although our bodies will disappear, we survive physical death. I'm your host, Sandra Champlain, author of the international best-selling book called We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. And I'm thrilled to introduce you to a great lady that we have on the show today. Her name is MarVeena Meek. Marvina is a psychic medium who lives on a horse ranch near Dallas, Texas. She had a lot of unusual experiences as a child, seeing things that were not in physical form. After a near-death experience in her 20s, she was able to see and hear spirits. Over time, she found that there was a lot of healing for others when she used her psychic abilities to relay what the spirits wanted to say. MarVeena Meek calls herself the go-between and has been dubbed the Ghost Queen by a local TV personality, and she now hosts her own paranormal television show called From the Shadows. Besides doing medium readings, she offers many products, courses, and services to help others, including a self-mastery bootcamp, an angelic intensive, and a psychic development course. So welcome to We Don't Die Radio, MarVeena Meek.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I was stumbling over my words a little in the beginning because I get so excited with these interviews, and we have never met, and so this is awesome. Thank you, Marvina.
Well, it's awesome to be here. Thank you for having me.
Sure. Are you at your ranch now?
Yes, I am.
Very cool. And for our listeners, if you go to marveena.com, which is MarVeena.com, there's some pictures of her with her horse, Roxanne.
I have Roxanne on there, and I have a lot of other horses. I've got like 12 horses here at the ranch, and then I have 4 in training. So we have quite a few of them.
Wow. Sounds like a nice place. So,
absolutely.
Would you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Because your story sounds like no others that I've heard of. So I'm excited. Just a little bit about your background and how it all came to be of who you are today.
Well, my biggest passion has been my horses from my earliest memory. So I've always been a cowgirl at heart and loved to ride, love my horses. And I was really interested in rodeo when I was a kid and horse shows. So I would go all over the country doing rodeos and horse shows and these events. And that's always been my passion. It comes back to the horse. So I started out in rodeo, and now my husband and I are into race horses, and I do dressage. So I'm pretty deep into it.
Wow, that's awesome. And what kind of things did you do in the rodeo back in the day?
Well, I've done a little of everything. I mostly did barrel racing and trick riding and trick roping, but I also did a little bit of breakaway calf roping, and I rode bareback bucking horses a little bit, like 3 or 4 starts.
Oh, that is so wild.
It was wild, let me tell you.
I've never talked to a rodeo person before. I've been to some rodeos, but that's really neat.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed my rodeo time. I wouldn't trade it for anything. It was a blast.
Now, being a rodeo rider, trick rider, and then being a psychic medium seem like ends of different spectrums. So how did that occur that you got interested in medium work?
Well, I had a really severe traumatic accident. That's how it happened.
Okay. Yeah, because we don't normally ask for these things to happen. Something monumental can often happen to lead you on another path. And what was your accident about? How'd that happen?
Well, I was at a rodeo, and I have a really big trick riding horse, and a trick riding saddle is a little bit different than an ordinary saddle, quite a bit different, actually. It has a saddle horn that the diameter of like a quarter, and so that way you can get both hands on the saddle horn so that you can do tricks with the horse in there. And then in order to keep the saddle from slipping off the horse, you have to cinch it up pretty tight pull the girth like really tight. And once you get ready to go in for your event, you have about 15, 20 minutes that to get in, to do your show, and then to get out and get your horse uncinched. So he's not so, it's kind of like a lady putting on a girdle. And they're like, oh my God, I can't breathe, but I'm looking good,
Right.
And then as soon as they take it off, they're like, oh,
yeah, a relief.
I feel so much better. But anyhow, I had my horse pulled up. I was ready to go in to do my trick riding performance. And it was a really big rodeo, and they were doing an event that's called steer wrestling or bulldogging.
Okay.
And there was probably 20 guys that were coming out of the arena, and I was the only one that was trying to go into the arena. And horses are very herd instinctive animals, and they never want to go against the herd. They always want to go with the group of horses. And so I was trying to maneuver my horse through all of these guys, and they weren't really making way for me. They were just, in their own world, in their own head, doing thinking about their ride and all this, that. And my music was playing, and the rodeo announcer was doing my introduction, and here she is, Miss Marvina, and wanted me to get into the arena. The show needs to go on. And I couldn't get my horse through all of these other horses. And so my horse was getting agitated. I was getting agitated. And anyhow, it was just a big hot mess, as we say here in Texas. Mm-hmm. And my horse reared up, and he just got so fed up with it that he reared up and just flipped over backwards on top of me. And so that impact, most of the weight hit my back, like the lower back. And whenever he landed on me, the saddle horn, it actually, I think the saddle horn saved my life, because it landed right by my ribs. And so there was 6 inches of space between the ground and the horse, and I was in there.
Wow.
And so it kept the weight, most of the weight of him off of me. But whenever he rolled over to get up, he rolled to the left, and he broke my leg in 2 places. And I have ribs and all kinds of, stuff broke, but most of it was in my leg there. But anyhow, with that initial impact of, he was a big horse. He was 1,200 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
And he threw himself. He didn't just fall. He threw himself backwards. So it was a very traumatic injury. And that's whenever I had my near-death little journey.
Explain that, because you're, I'm assuming, knocked unconscious.
Right. Well, it was further than unconscious. It was
near death. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it was literally knocked out of the body.
Oh my.
And so it was it kind of, everything happened in slow motion. And then what I remember is that, for one thing, I disengaged from the body, and I felt no pain at all from the body. And I remember kind of floating above my body, and I turned around to take a look at my body, and I already had what I thought to myself is, she looks like a mess. Wow. Because I looked down at me, and my left toe was bent and pointing up to my left ear. And I looked down, and I was like, oh my gosh, she looks a mess. And then I just turned my head around and it's like I left. Like I'm like, well, I'm out of here. She's messed up and I'm not sticking around for this. That I was so shocked at how quick that I was able to let go of my attachment to this body. And I mean, I was healthy as a horse. I had everything to live for. I was having a blast with my career. I was a rodeo girl. I starred in rodeos all over the United States as a trick rider and a trick roper, and I was having a blast. There was absolutely no reason for me to want to leave anything because it was fun. I had it made. Right. But I just turned and like, I'm out of here. And it was amazing to me how comfortable I was and how much I instinctively knew what to do next. And even what to expect. I just instinctively knew which way I needed to navigate. And I was excited about it. I was really looking forward to it. I was like, oh, this is awesome. I'm so ready.
That's wild.
It is, because it happened in a nanosecond. It was like 1 minute, you're this rodeo cowgirl and you're riding your horse and you've got your music playing and you're doing this whole cowgirl thing. And then the next minute you're just navigating to, what kind of looked like the Milky Way. And so I was moving along and I felt like I needed to go up and to my right a little bit. That was my orientation. And I felt, I was alone, and it felt kind of dark to me, but I wasn't afraid at all, like totally had no fear. And then, and I just had this instinctive pull. I need to go up and I need to go to the right. Like I knew exactly where I needed to go. And then I was sort of like on my way, and I just saw like a couple of spirits that sort of put me in mind of like a monk, like what you would think a monk might look like. Okay. And it's like I was like booking along, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw them, and they were like looking into what it looked to me like is like a book. And they just looked up and saw me and had this startled look on their face, like, she's not supposed to be here. And then I remember them saying that, and I knew that they were going to be a problem. They weren't going to let me go.
Wow. And
so I was all set to turn around and, make a case, like, I'm not going back. And so I remember, sort of having my hands on my hip, like, I'm not going back. And I didn't get the chance to argue at all. Like, the next thing I know, I was just snapped right back into my body. And of course, then I had total recall of the pain, and you're totally immersed right back into the whole physical experience, and the full magnitude of the event is like right there in your face. So that was the accident.
Can you still remember what the monks looked like in that experience?
They were very vague, but they had, it looked like a hood and like robes, and they looked very kind and like the same, like they weren't like extremely tall or anything, like a normal human type person. But I can't remember a face.
Yeah. Oh no, it's okay. I was just wondering if it still is vivid. And I just have this image of these guys going, what's she doing here? Like, this isn't her time. Like, what happened? So then you wake up in your body in a tremendous amount of pain.
Yes.
Carried off to the hospital and...
Yes, and I was way out in the country. It was at a country rodeo, and the guy that was driving the ambulance, he was probably like 19.
Oh my.
And of course, he's like feeling like the hero, like I'm going to save her life. And he was driving like 90 miles an hour. And the lady, there was a lady in the back that was the only attendant, and bless her heart, she was crying. I mean, I was crying. I was in horrible, horrible pain, like you can't imagine.
No.
And that attendant, I think she matched every teardrop, and she held my hand, and they can't give you any medicine on there.
No.
They can't give you painkiller. And so, anyhow, she held my hand. She was like an angel. She just was so sweet. And I was like 50 miles from a hospital.
Oh, no.
It was horrible. And so and I was in the boondocks. I mean, like country roads. And I mean, the rodeo itself was like out in this cow pasture. And I mean, it was very rough and choppy, and they had to practically four-wheel drive just to get out of the rodeo grounds. And of course, you've got Bo Duke that's driving, and he's like, yeehaw, and I'm like, slow down. And it's like the bone was broken in two places. So every time we would hit anything, like a pothole or a line in the road, it's like the bones would scrape together, and it was agonizing. And then we get to the hospital, and and it's a country hospital, and I don't think they get a whole lot of stuff going on. And but anyhow, they rolled me into the emergency room, and this I think it was probably an intern, and they had a big old plastic bubble on my leg to support it. Mm-hmm. And he just grabbed my bubble. I mean, the bubble was like from my toes all the way up to my hip, and he just like shook it. Oh. And of course I screamed, and he's like, yeah, it's broke. And I just wanted to reach up and just slap him into next year.
I want to slap him just hearing the story.
It made me so mad. I'm like, duh,
Oh.
But anyhow, they decided that they couldn't fix it. So they sent me to another hospital. And this time I had a woman driving who was much better. I mean, honestly, she was much better. And I had a guy that was an attendant, and it was hysterical, really. The guy they still can't give me drugs.
Oh my gosh, the suffering.
I'm still in raw pain. And the guy is trying to tell me jokes to take my mind off the pain.
Oh, God bless him.
It was so funny because he'd be doing his best, giving his best jokes, and I was just moaning and crying, and he's trying not to cry, and he doesn't know what to do with hysterical women.
Of course.
But it was a pretty wild night, and we get to the hospital, and it's in the summer, and there's a whole bunch of June bugs that are under the entrance to the hospital. And the attendant said, let's put a sheet over her head so the bugs won't get to her. And in my mind, I was so out of it. I thought, well, if the sheet's over my head, then I'm dead.
Right.
And so then I was like, I don't want to be dead. It's like I had this flip-flop of well, now that I'm back here, I'm going to dig in and stick this out.
Right.
And so anyhow, that was the last thing I remember about the whole hospital. And then finally they got me some painkiller. And So there was some relief.
Of course, and I'm sure the healing road wasn't easy. But where did you starting to pick up on this psychic stuff come in? I mean,
Well, you know what? Whenever I was a kid, I had lots of visions, and a lot of times mostly of animals. So I would see animal spirits, and when my grandfather died, I was 10 years old, and he came to tell me that he died when I was 10. And I remember I was on the front porch, I was playing, and my parents were at the hospital, and he came and he told me, he said, I passed away, and I don't want you to be sad because I'm happy.
wow.
And he had cancer really bad, and he was in a lot of pain. And whenever I looked at him, he looked so happy and so at peace. And you could see all the color like back in his face, and that all of the lines of pain were not on his face anymore. And he was so happy. And even though I loved him very, very much, I could not be sad that he was gone, because he has so much peace. And he was just so excited to be able to move on from this physical. And so that was when I was 10. That was way before this near-death event. But I never really thought much of it. I pretty much thought that everybody had things, saw things from time to time. Mm-hmm. But when I was in the hospital, I was still on some major painkillers, and my mother sat with me the whole time. And I just remember, like, when the elevator would, you'd hear that ding, mm-hmm. and I would tell my mom that, oh, that's Uncle Leroy. And the elevator was quite a ways down the hall, but you could hear it ding. And then a couple of minutes later, Uncle Leroy would walk into my room to visit with us.
Wow.
And then I'd hear a ding, and I'd say, oh, Mom, that's the doctor making his rounds. And then like a minute or so later, here came the doctor in the room. And then a ding, and I'd say, oh, Mom, Daddy's coming to visit. And so I just, that was kind of an unusual, like, and I didn't really think anything of it. I was like, I heard a noise, I had a thought or an awareness, and I spoke it. And so that was one thing that I started to finally put two and two together, that I'm my wiring's a little bit different now.
Right.
Something's a little different. And then they moved a lady into my room with me, and I just had a feeling that she wasn't going to be here very long. And when every time that they had to move me, because I had a cast on up to my hip. I mean, the cast alone weighed as much as I did.
Oh my gosh.
And I was in traction. So there's this thing that, my leg is hanging in the air, and there's all of these mechanisms and hoops that you have to jump through to move me. So every day they would take me to, what do you call it? Physical therapy every day. And it took like 4 guys to move me, 4 interns, like 2 to move my leg and 2 to move me. And so it's this big ordeal just to get me anywhere, to physical therapy or the bathroom or change the sheets on the bed. And so when they moved this lady in, I just had this horrible flash. And this is about 4 weeks into the hospital stay. And I just saw like a vision of fire. And it just scared me because it took 4 guys to move me. And so I'm thinking that they're not going to, if this building's on fire, they're not going to have 4 guys just to come and get me.
No.
And I was worried about this poor lady, about them getting her out. And so I just kept having this vision of fire for like several days. And I talked my daddy into checking me out of the hospital because it just scared me to death. And what I thought was like, I can lay in bed at home just as easy as I can lay in bed here. And anyhow, I talked him into it. He checked me out of the hospital. And about 2 or 3 days after I got home, there was a fire on that floor in that hospital.
Oh my gosh.
It wasn't a devastating fire, and nobody was even hurt.
But it was a fire nonetheless.
Yeah, it was a fire. And I mean, that's the weirdest thing. And so I just, I think that was another like, okay, Marvina, something's a little bit different here. It's like you're having dreams and visions, and then that vision came to pass. And so that was some of the first things that just, kind of triggered it.
How old were you when the accident happened?
I was about 3 days shy of my 21st birthday.
Wow. That's what I was thinking, somewhere around that age. That young lady all of a sudden is now open to something else.
They brought my birthday cake to me, and they wouldn't even let me eat it. The doctor wouldn't let me eat it. He ate my birthday cake.
That's just mean.
By my bed. I was on IVs, and he ate it right there in front of me. I was like, I can't believe you're doing this.
So then take us more towards present day, because at some point you obviously continued on with your life, but you chose to make a difference with other people, right?
Well, I think this was one of those things that I didn't talk to anybody else about these experiences. I just kind of kept it to myself.
How about that?
It makes you think differently, and it makes you do a little research and read. And so I just started putting 2 and 2 together and getting interested in learning more about spiritual phenomena, psychic phenomenon. And there was a wonderful teacher in Dallas, Texas. Her name is Dewana Paul, and she's one of the most amazing women that I've ever known. And she had a weekly development group. And I started going to her group and sitting with her, and with no real expectations of really doing mediumship or but more just interested in it and exploring it. And I just as I was working with her, and this was like several months, I was in her development circle one night. And I had a vision, and anyhow, the second after I had the vision, Dewana had the same vision, and she explained it. And there was a woman in the room was like, well, that's my uncle. And that was how I learned. That's how I developed, is I was meditating. I was doing a lot of reading on spiritual subjects and working and doing my own personal pieces and personal development and meditations. But I would sit in her circles, and I would get an impression or a tension somewhere or a feeling. And then Dewana would just like say the same thing or talk about the same image or the same impression or the same feeling. And she would say, and I feel like it's going for Peggy over here. And so that was like confirmation that she confirmed what I was seeing or feeling or experiencing. And so that was a really wonderful way to learn.
It is, and it's safe because it's over time, and
Yes.
there was no pressure on that you had to do that.
Right. And that was a key thing, is when you are not pressured to producing anything amazing, or nobody's expecting anything for you at all. And then finally, Tawana would get to where she would say, well, now tell me what you're seeing, Marvina. What are you experiencing? Or what are you getting? What are you sensing? And I would just tell her, and she would explain the symbolism for whoever the message was directed for. And so that's how I learned how to work with symbolism, how the spirit world, how they impress upon you messages or ideas or feelings or experiences for them, or experiences that that person in the room is going through. And so I started to connect things. And when a spirit is in my personal space, you'll feel like somebody walked in the room. You know how right now you're in your room, and if somebody walks in, you feel their energy. Things shift and change. And it's the same way when a spirit comes into my personal space, and you'll feel an intensity of you've got to say something. If my husband walked in the room and he's standing there looking at me, I know he wants something. You know?
That's a great way to explain it.
Yeah, so they want something, and they're not going to leave until you tell them what they need to hear, or until you whatever. And so I finally learned that when I feel anxiety or tense or uncomfortable or heavy, or a weight on my shoulder, or numb somewhere, or even hurt somewhere, that I need to open my mouth and try to put words to what it is. And that's the basic way of explaining it, is I try to put words that best describe whatever I'm experiencing.
Do you see people in your mind's eye, or is it more feeling like, I watched one of your videos and you felt somebody's arm pain, and it come to find out that they had bone cancer in their arm? I mean, or do you, which was wild to witness that. So I'm glad you have your videos up. But do you actually see kind of people?
I do both. Okay. I see images, I hear things, I feel things, and I may smell something. If you're very sensitive, you can smell disease. I can smell when people are sick. Amazing. And it really isn't that amazing.
Says one who's living it. Okay.
Well, you just think about it, and the next time you are around someone that has a disease, you just think about it. It's there's a smell. I think what is that word?
Sentient?
No, it's Claire Augustus, maybe.
Oh.
Claire Augustus, yep. I think is the actual word. But there are some medical healers that can just really hone in on exactly where and what the problem is. So, but yeah, I use all of my senses, and spirit uses them all too. So there's no rhyme or reason about which ones they're going to pick to use whenever I do a reading for someone. I use everything. I just create the intention to be of service to this person, and to be a blessing, and to relay whatever messages are there from their guides, from their teachers, their angels, their loved ones on the other side, their highest spiritual guides. So I just create the intention basically to put Marvina out of out of the mix and just to be a relay station for them.
Yeah, I love that you call yourself the go-between. I can get that. Like your ego goes out of the way and you just are there for being of service.
I think you have to put your ego out, and you can't be worried about being wrong, or you can't worry about basically what it looks like to them, because then you start judging and then you start limiting what I think that creates resistance. And it's very difficult because I want that person to have the benefit of the messages from their family. I had a lady here yesterday whose father just died, and she was in so much grief.
Of course.
And this was like 2 years ago, and she was still just in really deep pain and sadness and grief. And her father showed up in spades, and he brought through so much confirmation of their life together. He brought in his father, which was her granddad, with his name, and her grandmother, and just pieces of their life that she remembered, and little different pieces of confirmation. And when she left, it was like her whole energy dynamic had just changed, and instead of this gray like cloud over her, that you could finally see her breathe and see the peace on her face. And that's huge. when you can do that for someone else, I mean, that's such a blessing.
That's massive, Marvina. And that's one of the reasons I do this show, because not everybody is going to have an opportunity to be with a psychic medium. Not everybody has got one of these miraculous visions or a dream that they get at night. But to hear so many stories, especially when you are grieving, I mean, there's this huge transformation that takes place when you really get that, yeah, you're going to still hurt physically, because grief hurts awfully. However, to know that your loved one is still around, they're happy, they're healthy, it's like, oh, that means I can go on with my life and actually have a better life, knowing that there's a bigger picture.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's night and day. It is totally night and day. And so that's why I keep doing this work. And I think it just kind of evolved over time. I mean, I'm still deeply passionate about my dressage horses and all of my thoroughbreds and everything. But I have a totally different perspective about what's truly important.
What was it like getting back on that horse after you healed?
I wasn't afraid. And my mother, she put the law down. She forbid anyone to help me catch a horse or get on a horse or get near a horse.
Wow.
So I had to do it on my own. But I had a lot of time. I mean, my recuperation period was a full year. And so finally they cut the cast down to where it was at my knee. And so that was huge in terms of your ability to get around and move. And so then I was able to get out to the pasture and catch a horse. And it was really hard to get up on it. I had to like climb up on a chair, and then my crutches were like banging around, and the horse was like, "What are you doing? And what are these sticks? And why are they poking me? And I haven't seen you in 6 months. By the way, where's my cookies? Where's my carrots?" And yeah, I crawled on bareback, and it wasn't scary to me at all. I mean, but it actually hurt because the cast, it was like dangling, and it put weight on the broken bone or the bone that was healing. So it hurt a lot. And doctors, they tell you to take it easy, and
they do say that.
Of course, you do everything but, and but I didn't get to ride very long because the weight of the cast was just too uncomfortable. But I did get on the horse.
That's great. You brought up something that you didn't have any fear. Did you notice from having this experience that there wasn't as much fear in other areas of your life? Like, did you feel calm about kind of like the big picture of life? And so even doing some of these medium readings, did it alter your view of fear or your...
Well, I can't say that I don't have fear.
Well, you're
I
human.
Have doubt. I mean, I'm still human, but
right.
I didn't have fear of getting on the horse. And I don't remember having fear of, it was probably 2 years before I was able to trick ride again. I was trick roping much sooner. So I was riding the horse and doing presentations. But when I started trick riding again, I don't remember being afraid of that.
That's funny because I don't know why I assumed you didn't go back into trick riding, but you did.
No, I did.
Of course you did.
As soon as I could. And
I love it.
It takes a while. I mean, I had a tibia and a fibula that were broke pretty bad. And so it takes a while for those to knit back up and get strong. And so, but my doctor, he was my hero, even though he ate my birthday cake in front of me.
Right.
He was an amazing doctor.
That's great.
And it took a while for those bones to knit up and heal up. And he didn't think I would ever walk without a limp again, but I did. I walked just fine, and I have been for a long time.
You're a pretty powerful woman, and you're actually very good at what you do. And I want to find out, how did the television show come about? Because I introduced that a little bit at the beginning. From the Shadows is the name of the show. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because that's pretty darn cool.
I would love to. I got an email from a production company called Power Lunch Productions, and they wanted to do an interview about my near-death experience, just like you, Sandra. And but they wanted to do theirs on TV, and actually, they created a documentary, and you can find that on YouTube. Just do a search, but anyhow. They did the interview on the near-death experience, just like we were talking about. And afterwards, they said, Marvina, we'd like to work with you on some different projects, and let's create a project with following you and what you do and how you do it, and sort of kind of like a documentary about your life, because it's so different. You've got the horses and the racetrack and the dressage, and then you go in and you do a seance, and then you go to an old building and you clear out ghosts that are terrorizing the custodian, and let's follow your life. And so we created a pilot, so we have 3 full episodes. And we have an agent, and anyhow, I think they're wanting to change the title of the show for European audiences, so that it reflects the idea that it's in America. And but anyhow, we don't have that finalized yet. But it's really fun. It's been quite an adventure. It's one thing to do something off the cuff and to do a reading for a person and do it once, but when you've got cameras rolling and they want to get a shot from this viewpoint, and then they want to change up the cameras and film everything from that viewpoint, it's like the first time it's fresh. The second time you're like, okay. It's a little bit challenging.
Oh, I bet it is. But you also have to trust that Spirit's right there with you, and that whatever's supposed to come through is going to come through.
I really think that the angels are coordinating to get information out in different ways, like through like your show and different types of shows that just they gently open a another viewpoint, give people another way to think about something or to look at something. And when you start to open their minds, it's like then they start to explore and things start to click, and then I think magic starts to happen. It's like they can step up more into their power and engage with what their soul really wanted them to come here to do.
That's pretty cool. And for our listener too, if you go to WeDon'tDieRadio.com and you look at MarVeena Meek's episode, I'll have links to her YouTube video and the television show and all of her links. So everything's there at one place on WeDon'tDieRadio.com. Marvina, I wanted to ask you, because you brought up ghosts, you've brought up angels. Mostly on the show we talk about, or I talk about, connecting with our deceased loved ones. But who else is out there? I mean, do we have like spirit guides? Do we have teachers? Do we have angels? Ghosts? I mean, are there, do we all have ghosts floating around us?
Yes,
I know that's...
I don't know if you really want to know what else.
No, but if it can empower me, teasing. I know.
There are...
You're funny,
there
girl.
are so many different spirits and aspects of creation and the creator. The angelic kingdom is always around us, and there are angels that are assigned to us from birth and will be with us all the way through our entire incarnation.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice.
And there are spirit guides that are the same. It's like they come in with us. They help to help us. They help to direct us to some of the big pieces and really get our attention about what's truly important for us to focus on while we're here. And then our ancestors, our loved ones, they don't stay in our personal space all the time. I mean, they have their own journey on other astral planes, but they do come in from time to time to be an encouragement, to visit, to see what we've got going on, and just to kind of keep that relationship. They are a part of our spirit family or our soul family, so they're interested in our journey here, even though they usually don't stay all the time. So, and we have other spirits that are probably beyond most of our scope of comprehension, and we have those filters in place so that we can stay really focused on what we've got like right here in front of us, and that we can make the most of our journey here by keeping our focus here. If we didn't have filters and we were able to perceive entities and entities are, for the most part, they're yucky. And there's degrees of entities. You have negative entities that are anywhere from just like bullies or pranksters all the way through lesser demons or full demons or dark lords, all the way up to an archdemon, which would be a very, very, very evil and powerful spirit. So you have all of these degrees and layers, and for the most part, we have filters put into place so that we don't see them, and that's kind of for our protection, so that we can keep our focus here, and unless we have to have an interaction with them for some reason.
Is there anything we can do just to keep our energy high and stay safe and
we can do. You heard that term, keep your nose clean?
Right.
Well, to me, that means not abusing drugs or alcohol, and not like a little glass of wine or a glass of beer. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean abusing substances.
Right.
Any substance abuse is going to lower your ability. Basically, it's like nobody's home, and if nobody's home, then an entity can say, well, all right, if nobody's driving this ship, I'm going to hop in and I'm going to take advantage of this vehicle and take advantage of your resources and your energy and your life force and manipulate this person into basically doing what they want them to do. And that is very detrimental. I mean, that could cause death. I think that is one of the reasons for suicide, is that entities, they take control, and they're manipulative, and they're persistent. And after a while, it's like some people they just don't have the ability to stand up to them. They don't have the strength of will and the tenacity to stand up and say no. So leading a clean lifestyle, that's very helpful. Meditation and prayer are very supportive also, and creating that intention to be aligned with your higher soul path that's huge, because that opens a doorway so that your guides and your angels can work with you closer, and they can say, oh, by the way, you really need to clear the energy, or do some forgiveness work on some piece in the past, or you need to let go of that negative feeling for your ex-husband, or whatever. It's working our personal pieces is what we can do, is being mindful about doing our forgiveness work for others, but sometimes for ourselves. You know, we can be mad at ourselves for a decision that we made a long time ago.
Sure.
Yeah. So working our personal pieces, and keeping our thoughts the best we can pure and at a high vibration, and leading and living a good lifestyle. That's what we can do to keep the angels around us, to keep the ugly spirits away.
Can we all trust that we've got angels hanging out? Like, our deceased loved ones might not be around us 24/7, but right now I'm sitting what appears to be by myself. I can feel comforted that I've got some guides and some angels that have been with me since Sandra was born, and will be with me till the end.
I think so. You're saying? Absolutely. I absolutely think so. Even if a person is atheist or whatever religion or no religion, it doesn't matter. We all have support coming into this dimension. And that's one of the promises that the creator, creatress makes to us, is that the angels will be with us. And you know what? Sometimes things happen, accidents happen, bad things happen. And that really frustrated me, because I'm like, well, why didn't you do this, that, or the other before my horse flipped over on me? But you know, there are some incredibly powerful lessons that we learn about life, ourself, our connection to the Holy Spirit, our connection to each other, that we would not have got that lesson or that activation or that awareness if we hadn't have gone through that tragic experience, just like my near-death experience. I mean, that was horribly painful, and I wouldn't recommend it to anybody, but it was a turning point for me. And you know, another thing that I would recommend to people is to create the intention and just the mindset that I'm willing to learn my lessons through pleasure. Because I could have learned mine through pleasure. But you know what, Sandra? A lot of times people just get this mindset going that if we don't get it the hard way, we haven't done it honest. Like we're cheating.
I've never heard I'm willing to learn my lessons through pleasure. I'm writing that down. That's what you said, right?
Right. I'm willing to learn my lessons through pleasure, and in a beauty way. It's a Native American teaching. Living your life in a beauty way. So we can learn powerful lessons, life-changing lessons through pleasure. We don't have to go through painful, traumatic, bone-breaking events to to make a positive, powerful gain.
I love that you say that. I just have to share one little thing that I'm doing in my life. I'm doing a daily gratitude practice. I've read the book. I'm reading the book, The Magic, by the lady who wrote The Secret. And every day there's like homework of writing down 10 things you're grateful for. And there's different things every day. They don't take long at all. But for the last 2 weeks, Marvina, I have been happy. And so it really shows me that if I'm in a bad mood or if my ego's kicked in, just put in a little gratitude. So it's pleasurable. But all these neat little things are showing up in these unexpected phone calls. And they're like, to me, they're little miracles because I'm paying attention. I'm like, now, so something really good's happening here. So I feel like I'm learning lessons of how magical the world can be, and I am getting them in a pleasurable way as opposed to, having somebody die and, learning how to get through grief or something like that. So I love that you just said that.
Well, Sandra, I think the attitude of gratitude is what is so powerful. I mean, it raises our vibrations and to me, it gets our vibrations and our bubble up to that soul level. Mm-hmm. And when we're up there, that's where truly magic can happen, just like you're talking about, like you're aware of just little synchronicity events that come in, or you're more aware of just the little joys that come in. But when we have our bubble at the top, we're aligned with our soul essence energy, and we're tapped in, tuned in, turned on with the Holy Spirit, and we can tap into like way more of what I call the Akashic records and the matrix field, and pull information and ideas and creativity and data, like download it much easier than when we're in a funk and we're grouchy and like, get away from me, don't look at me, don't talk to me.
Yeah, because new ideas have come to my mind. I mean, like all kinds of good stuff. So that's definitely on the court example, learning my lessons through pleasures. So I'm looking at the time. Time goes by very quickly. What else do you want to share? I know you offer some services. I'd love if you wouldn't mind sharing about that and some of your courses.
Well, I have a weekly e-zine that I turn out every week, and I always have my my events, my updates, different releases of videos and show times, and different tips and ideas that you can, like easy things that you can use in your day-to-day life to align yourself with the angelic realm, and maybe to position yourself to hear a message from a love from one of your teachers or your guides. So you can just sign up for my e-zine on my website. There's just like a little bar that it says sign up for updates here, and it's free. And I have a ton of articles on my blog. I have a lot of YouTube videos that go over different situations, different connections with the spirit world, everything from talking about suicide, what happens when someone commits suicide, to tips for doing your own ghost busting if you've got a little bit of a yucky energy in your house, and things like that. And I have my self-mastery programs are on my website, and I've got a handful of them, and I'm really proud of them.
You should be. You should be. And tell us your website again. I know I said it at the beginning, but...
It's at marveena.com.
So easy. And Marvina spelled Marveena. Any closing words, Marvina? You've got a world of people listening right now, and maybe just have a better day today.
I live out on the ranch. There's nothing but cows and horses and weenie dogs out here. And so I'm on Facebook off and on all day. So hop over to my Facebook page and say hello, because I love it. I mean, I just talk to my clients and my weenie dogs and my horses. So I love having people talk to me on Facebook. And my Facebook page is Psychic Medium Marvina. So say hello and stay in touch.
I love that. I love that you're so real and you're so down to earth, and that you just share, and that, you didn't know you were going to go on this ride, so to speak, and become a psychic medium, and that you're a giver. I really, really love that about you. Thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome, and it was a pleasure to talk to you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you left me with just a huge smile on my face, because every one of these episodes, as much as I love to share them with other people, but I put my own life in it, and
right.
And listener, if you go to WeDon'tDieRadio.com, there's not only all the past episodes, but you can see beautiful Marvina's face and all the links to what she had mentioned, and even more, because I like sharing the good stuff. And what else? Thank you so much to MarVeena Meek. And I guess that's it. So in closing, I want to tell everybody that my name is Sandra Champlain. You've been listening to We Don't Die Radio. I do believe with all my heart that life is an education for the soul, and that your life here on earth is important. And in the words of Marvina, keep this intention. I'm willing to learn my lessons through pleasure. How great is that? So thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon.